This is Whiskey Whereabouts. I'm Tim, and this is the Macallan 12-year double cask, the one in the blue box. And I have referenced this whiskey on the channel many times, often talking about value. I did that as recently as last week. And I have built entire videos around lists of alternatives to this whiskey, but I've never actually reviewed this whiskey on the channel. So today, Macallan 12, your time has come. My whiskey journey has taken me to Scotland and back. I've explored whiskey education, tastings, and distilleries from Islay to Speyside. And now my journey continues here, with you, on Whiskey Whereabouts. Which of these Macallan 12s we're talking about? This is the double cask. The one in the black box is the more expensive all sherry oak mature. What does double cask mean? What they mean is that they aged it in American oak and European oak, likely ex-bourbon and ex-sherry casks, but all of the casks have been sherry seasoned. Famously 43% ABV, chill filtered, but no color added. This is a nice dark color from those 12 years in sherry seasoned casks. And Macallan does not use artificial fake color, so good job at least there. This is Speyside whiskey. I assure you, the distillery is in Speyside, but that's not what it says on the box or the bottle. It says Highland whiskey. I don't know how that came to be, but I can sort of say or sort of assume that it comes in handy from at least one marketing angle, which is to differentiate this whiskey from those, what we've been sort of calling the last couple weeks on the channel, those entry-level Glens. Those Glenfiddich, Glenlivet 12 years. And the whiskey in the glass definitely is distinguishable. Obviously, it's a step up with extra ABV, 3%. The most distinctive aspect of the process at Macallan has to do with the stills, specifically the shape. So it all has to do with the copper, contact with the spirit, and something called reflux. And we don't need to get lost in the woods here. 12 wash stills going into 14 spirit stills. They're small, they're short stills, and they have descending line arms coming off the stills. What does any of that mean? What it means is you're getting a heavier spirit. They've deliberately set up the stills so as not to strip away all of the heavier compounds, the sulfur compounds being among those. What you're getting is a more robust spirit. By contrast with another one of those sort of entry-level Glens, like Glenmorangie 12-year, Glenmorangie, they have the tallest stills in Scotland. Going in on the nose neat on the Macallan 12-year, very rich in terms of the flavor. Richly sweet brown sugar sherry. Not so much the sherry spice. I'm getting the sherry sweet, and it's coupled with nice leather, sort of supple, sort of oiled leather note. It's a nice nose for 43%. There is a green note as well, vegetal. Some bourbon cask notes, vanilla, honey, kind of at the bottom of this nose. There's another fruit note. This bottle's been open probably 10 days, and the neck pour, much more oaky. The oak's still there, but I'm just now getting to talk about it. The flavor notes have really blossomed. That first pour was tighter and less of the sort of fruit and green elements, and the oak was stronger. It's pretty rich. It's almost a root beer sweet at the bottom. Really concentrated sweetness. Just enough space, I think, for some of those other elements. Onto the palate neat here. The flavors are really pretty rich, and so it's a pretty nice experience. If you hold it, as you're trying to catalog the notes long enough, you get a little heat, you get a little that sort of prickly pepper sensation. There's something here. It's not as rich in terms of the mouthfeel as it could be, but the flavors are there, so that's pretty good. It is, again, a lot of follow through from the nose. There's a lot of the same brown sugar kind of sherry sweet, and there is that leather element. The neck pour, it was too sweet. It was marshmallow sweet, and there wasn't a lot of space for the spice. Here I'm getting a little bit more of the sherry spice, even more than the nose. Sort of baking spices, you know what I'm talking about. Kind of cinnamon, kind of lively. The sherry comes on pretty strong, just like the nose. As it develops, goes a little bourbon casky. Honey, the oak. I wouldn't say it ever develops into a totally different character, but it does have those other elements. On the finish, going back, I would say pretty solidly medium finish, and it has improved since the neck pour. The neck pour, you can see the level is below the label here. It's had a little time, got a little space in that bottle. Very prominent casky oak sort of tannin note, out of balance. It's not meant to be that prominent, and as it's clear now that it's settled that it's there, but it's threaded into the mix in a much more balanced way now. The flavors that it has made way for are a lot of the same stuff that we have been experiencing in the first two stages. Sherry on the front, a little bit more bourbon as it develops, sort of vanilla and honey, that type of sweetness. The nuttiness, I would say. There was a really clean kind of mint element on the finish on the neck pour. It was pretty almost orange chocolate, I would say. Really concentrated sherry sweet. And now I'm getting it's caramel, so it's rich, it's condensed, but it's more bourbon cask, kind of vanilla caramel sweet with sherry spice, a little bit of space for that now. The cinnamon, sure, that sort of nutmeg kind of corner of the spice cabinet, it's there. Okay, so I've topped off my pour and I've added some water. Not because it needs it, 43%, it's very, very sippable whiskey. But to see, as I always do, what happens, what else we can find in the glass here with the water. And this is one of those whiskeys where this makes sense. Watch this. Yeah, a huge difference here with the water added to this whiskey. And one of the things it's done, it has just really washed out the sweetness. That sweet element is still there, the same sweet notes I was talking about, but way down in the mix. What is taking its place? A lot of citrus, clean lemon citrus, not really sherry, which I associate with a sweeter sort of orange citrus. Very clean, crisp kind of lemon citrus. That leather note that I was talking about, really high in the mix now, really noticeable here with the water. The next is that sort of apricot, sort of peach note. I didn't get it at all on the nose and the neck pour. I was getting it in the mix here today with it opened up. Now it's undeniable. It's really present here. There's another element here, and in the neat sort of nose, vegetal green. Now it's gone really earthy. It's not like mushroom, but it has a sort of damp, sort of earthy note here. And I think with the water, we've rinsed away some of that sherry cask influence with the sweet elements. And we're getting a little bit of that heavier kind of aspect. So it's really drowned the mouthfeel. What was there is really diminished. The sweetness is a real butterscotchy sweet. And it doesn't have a lot of dimension. And cinnamon. Dash of cinnamon. Not much else on the palate. On the finish, so I found that minty element. Again, it's almost a chocolate mint now. It's not really on the palate while the finish develops. It's more in the sinus, it's more of a presence of it. It's sort of a vanilla, sweet, pretty straightforward. Vanilla, kind of sweet, developing in to that slightly more chocolate kind of sweetness while it plays out. There's a little bit of sort of pepper, lively. I wouldn't call it heat, but it's there with the oak. The water hasn't made this a better experience. It is perfectly drinkable. I said when I reviewed Glenlivet 12 year that I would finish my little half bottle, and I'm sure I will finish this one. We had a very big hockey game this week here in North America, and while I was watching that, guess what was in my glass? This. That's, it is very well suited for sort of sipping, decently rich, and I'm gonna say it's 3 1/4 glasses. a whiskey that isn't that complicated, that isn't super surprising, but does give you something I think that is distinctively its own. So up to this point in the video, I have not used the words price or value. And I did that intentionally. I promised myself I would meet the Macallan 12 on its own terms, in the glass, and just sort of engage with the whiskey, totally independent of that whole conversation around Macallan and price. But now comes the part of the video where I have to rate the whiskey in terms of value for its final rating, as I always do. So this is a 375 ml bottle of Macallan 12, and Total Wine has these for as much as $50, the half bottle. I have seen full bottles of Glenlivet 12, Glenfiddich 12 Command. Not at Total Wine probably, but I have seen the price of this bottle, 750 ml, the actual size bottle, as high as $85. To be fair, it is a widely distributed whiskey that's available in many different locations through many different channels and comes at different prices. And I have honestly seen it, as low as, the high 60s to $75. And the problem is, if you are seeing that whiskey in that price, you're probably seeing others also at a lower price, and the price is relative, but this is a whiskey that commands a price that is completely out of proportion to what it offers sort of in the glass. This is a whiskey that delivers on an experience that is beyond the $45, $50-ish entry-level 12-year whiskey. It's a step above in ABV. It's a step above in the level of richness and the quality of the whiskey. It cannot be just sort of dismissed out of hand as a terrible whiskey. It is a whiskey that is perfectly drinkable, very sippable whiskey, and a really nice step forward here. The problem, however, is that there are a bunch of whiskeys that are better than this one that cost significantly less. And in fact, I just did a video listing several of them last week on the channel. I'll put the link at the end so you can check it out if you haven't. But honestly, this whiskey should cost $60. And it costs as much as $75, $80, $85. It's because of the branding, it's because of the place that it's been positioned in the marketplace. Would the whiskey justify that price if it was better presented? That's a great experiment for us to think about, right? What about a 46% non-chill filtered Macallan 12 year at the same price? Maybe we're knocking on the door of justifying the price. But as it is now, Tamdhu has reverse engineered this whiskey. Tamdhu 12 is American European oak, sherry seasoned casks, 43%, and it's better than this, and it costs less, not much less. That Tamdhu 12 is not a bargain, but it costs less than this and it's better. So there's no reason to buy this other than lack of availability and its sort of renown and its sort of branding at this point. And so it obviously has to pay a penalty here for the final rating. And I am going to assess the Macallan 12 double cask, the highest penalty for value that I have, and I'm going to dock it a full glass and reduce it, final rating 2.25 glasses. Harsh, but fair, and that's why I rate them separately, independent of value, so we can still have a discussion about what the whiskey's like in the glass. And so if you have enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe. A week from today, Malt Madness 2025 begins. You are not going to want to miss it. At least a couple of the bottles on my list of whiskeys that are better than those entry-level Glens and cheaper than this whiskey, the one I'm going to link to here right at the end over here, are in the field for the Malt Madness tournament. It's a blind tasting tournament that starts next Friday, and I will see you then.